Seeds of solitude. The hydroponic gardens hummed with artificial life as Rihanna Nash adjusted the nutrient flow to her latest experimental crop. Her fingers moved with practiced precision across the control panel, but her eyes remained distant, focused on memories she couldn't shake. The scars along her arms caught the blue-tinted light, remnants of the day everything changed. 5 years had passed since the attack on the Mars research station. She had been testing new methods of growing food crops in Martian soil when the Void Raiders struck without warning. Their ships appeared like dark stars against the red planet sky, weapons tearing through the station's defenses as if they were paper. 37 researchers died that day. Rihanna survived only because she'd been in the reinforced underground greenhouse. Now, back on Earth, she buried herself in her work at the International Botanical Research Institute. The facility sat isolated in the Norwegian wilderness, perfect for someone who preferred the company of plants to people. Her reputation as a brilliant but reclusive botanist kept most colleagues at bay, which suited her fine. Dr. Nash, the new atmospheric regulators have arrived, announced the facility's AI through hidden speakers. Rihanna nodded, though she knew the AI didn't need the acknowledgement. The machines would help with her latest project, creating plants that could survive in toxic atmospheres. If she succeeded, these modified species could help clean up worlds damaged by industrial pollution or warfare. She moved through the rows of experimental plants, each sealed in its own controlled environment chamber. Some glowed with bioluminescent modifications, others displayed unusual colors or growth patterns. All represented potential solutions to humanity's expanding needs as they reached for the stars. All represented safer alternatives to the traditional terraforming methods that had drawn the attention of hostile species like the Void Raiders. The work consumed her days and nights. She took her meals in the laboratory, slept on a cot in her office, and spoke to others only when absolutely necessary. The other researchers had learned to send their questions and reports via text or email. Some probably thought her cold or arrogant, but Rihanna couldn't bring herself to care. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the faces of her lost colleagues, heard their final transmissions as the station burned. One evening, as she was recording observations of a particularly promising specimen, the facility's security system chimed. An unscheduled visitor had arrived at the main gate. Rihanna frowned, checking the time, 21:47. No one came to the institute this late. Display visitor identification, she commanded. The AI brought up a holographic screen showing credentials that made her breath catch. The visitor was not human. The image showed a tall, ethereal being with iridescent skin that seemed to ripple with changing colors. Its large, dark eyes held an ancient wisdom, and its body appeared to produce subtle harmonics that the Institute's sensors struggled to classify. The credentials identified it as Tavish, a healing ambassador from the Harmonious, a species known for their mastery of sound-based technologies and therapies. Rihanna's first instinct was to deny entry. She had deliberately chosen this posting because the Institute rarely hosted alien visitors. But the Harmonious were well respected among humans, one of the few alien species that had proven consistently peaceful and beneficial to relations with Earth. Her finger hovered over the denial button. The Harmonious visitor's credentials indicated it sought consultation on adapting Earth plants for use in their healing technologies. This was precisely the kind of collaboration that could advance her research significantly. Still, her heart raced at the thought of working directly with any alien being. Dr. Nash, the AI interrupted her thoughts. Ambassador Tavish's ship is generating unusual harmonic patterns. They appear to be therapeutic in nature. Rihanna studied the readings. The frequencies seemed designed to induce calm and promote emotional balance. Was the ambassador already trying to help her? The thought should have made her angry. How dare this alien presume to know what she needed? Instead, she felt an unexpected flutter of curiosity. With trembling fingers, she pressed the acceptance button. As the gate opened, Rihanna took several deep breaths, steeling herself for whatever came next. She had spent years building walls around herself, creating a safe but lonely existence among her plants. Now, something told her those walls were about to be challenged in ways she never expected. Little did she know, this late-night visitor would become the catalyst for a journey that would not only change her life but also reshape the future of human-alien healing practices. But first, she had to find the courage to open more than just the facility's gates. She had to open herself to the possibility of trust once again. Unexpected frequencies. The sound of Tavish's footsteps echoed strangely through the Institute's corridors, creating subtle harmonics that made the air itself seem to vibrate. Rihanna led the way to her main laboratory, hyper-aware of the alien presence behind her. The harmonious ambassador moved with fluid grace, its iridescent skin casting gentle ripples of light across the sterile white walls. "Your plants," Tavish spoke, its voice carrying multiple tones that somehow blended into perfect clarity, "they sing with pain." Rihanna stopped abruptly, turning to face her visitor. "Excuse me? Your specimens, they emit frequencies of distress." "Not from poor care," Tavish added quickly, noting her defensive posture. "They reflect the emotional state of their caretaker." The observation hit too close to home. Rihanna's hands clenched involuntarily, her scars itching with remembered trauma. "I wasn't aware the harmonious could read emotions through plants." "All living things generate frequencies," Tavish explained, moving to one of the sealed chambers. Inside, a modified variety of night-blooming jasmine pulsed with a soft blue glow. "Your Earth scientists understand that plants respond to sound, to touch, to the emotions of those around them. We Harmonia simply learn to hear what they're saying." Despite her reservations, Rihanna found herself intrigued. "And what are my plants saying?" Tavish's skin shifted to deeper blues and purples. "They echo your discord. Your grief. Your isolation." The ambassador's large eyes fixed on her with gentle intensity. "But they also resonate with your determination to heal, not yourself, but others." Rihanna turned away, busying herself with checking nutrient levels that didn't need checking. "You came here to discuss adapting Earth plants for your healing technologies, Ambassador. Not to psychoanalyze me through my research subjects." "The two are more connected than you might think, Dr. Nash." Tavish moved to another chamber, this one containing a species Rihanna had modified to absorb heavy metals from contaminated soil. "Your work focuses on creating plants that can heal damaged worlds. Our sound therapy seeks to heal damaged souls. Perhaps there is potential for collaboration that benefits both." The suggestion made Rihanna uncomfortable, but she couldn't deny the logic. The Harmonious were centuries ahead of humans in understanding the therapeutic applications of sound. If their techniques could be combined with her botanical research. "What exactly are you proposing?" she asked, trying to keep her voice neutral. Tavish's skin rippled with subtle gold patterns, a sign of excitement, Rihanna guessed. "Your modified plants already respond to specific frequencies. What if we could tune them to emit healing harmonics? Create living therapeutic environments that combine the benefits of both our sciences?" The idea was brilliant, Rihanna had to admit. But it would require working closely with Tavish, opening her laboratory, and herself, to alien influence. Everything she'd spent years avoiding. As if sensing her hesitation, Tavish moved to the center of the lab and began to hum. The sound started almost below the threshold of human hearing, then built into a complex chord that seemed to resonate with every molecule in the room. The plants responded immediately, their bioluminescent patterns shifting in rhythm with the ambassador's song. Rihanna felt it too, a gentle easing of the constant tension she carried in her shoulders, a softening of the chronic knot in her chest. For just a moment, the weight of her memories lifted, replaced by a sense of possibility she hadn't experienced since before the attack. "That's incredible," she whispered, watching her plants dance with Tavish's music. "How did you?" "Every living being has its own natural frequency," Tavish explained, letting the song fade. Find that frequency, match it, and you can help restore harmony to systems that have been thrown out of balance. Whether those systems are botanical, biological, or emotional. The implications were staggering. If they could develop plants that naturally produced these therapeutic frequencies, the applications for trauma recovery alone would be revolutionary. But more than that, this could represent a new kind of human-alien cooperation, one based on healing rather than exploitation or defense. Rihanna found herself at a crossroads. She could retreat back into her self-imposed isolation, continue her solo research behind emotional walls as thick as the Institute's security barriers. Or she could take a risk, open herself to new possibilities, new connections. Looking at her plants, still swaying slightly in the aftermath of Tavish's song, she made her decision. "We'll need to start with baseline measurements," she said, moving to her computer terminal. "Document how different species respond to various frequencies, map their natural harmonic patterns." Tavish's skin brightened with patches of warm yellow. "Then you'll consider the collaboration?" Rihanna took a deep breath, pushing back the whispers of fear and doubt. "Yes. But we proceed carefully, methodically. Everything properly documented and verified." "Of course," Tavish agreed. "Science first. The healing comes naturally after." As they began setting up the initial experiments, Rihanna realized that for the first time in years, she felt something like hope. Perhaps it was time to let her garden grow in new directions, to plant seeds not just of survival, but of regeneration. Breaking barriers. The following weeks transformed the Institute's main laboratory. Crystalline resonators, provided by Tavish, hung between the plant chambers, filling the air with subtle harmonics. Rihanna's modified specimens responded dramatically, developing new growth patterns and unprecedented behaviors. "Look at this," Rihanna called out, examining readings from a modified peace lily. "The plant isn't just responding to the frequencies, it's replicating them." She pulled up a holographic display showing overlapping wave patterns. "It's learning the therapeutic harmonics and producing its own versions." Tavish moved closer, its skin shimmering with deep greens of concentration. "The adaptation rate exceeds our projections. Your Earth species are remarkably resilient." "Resilient," Rihanna murmured, touching the chamber glass. "Yes, they are." She caught her reflection in the surface, the dark circles under her eyes had faded, and some of the tension had left her face. She wasn't the only one adapting. Working with Tavish had proven surprisingly comfortable. The harmonious ambassador respected her boundaries, never pushing for personal information, letting their shared passion for the research guide their interactions. Yet somehow, bit by bit, Rihanna found herself opening up. "The Void Raiders attacked during third shift," she said quietly, still watching the peace lily's gentle swaying. "Most of us were sleeping. I was checking on a time-sensitive experiment in the underground labs." Her fingers traced one of her scars unconsciously. "The plants saved me, you know. The hydroponic system kept me alive for 3 days until the rescue teams arrived." Tavish remained silent, but the ambient harmonics in the lab shifted subtly, offering comfort without intrusion. After a moment, the ambassador spoke. "Among my people, we believe that surviving trauma creates unique frequencies within a being. Like cracks in crystal, they can weaken the structure, yes, but they can also create new patterns of light." Rihanna turned from the chamber, meeting Tavish's dark eyes. "Is that why you really came here? You sensed these frequencies in me?" "I came because your research could help countless beings," Tavish answered honestly. "But yes, I also sensed a resonance between your pain and your purpose. You understand healing differently because of what you endured." A warning light flashed on one of the monitoring stations, breaking the moment. They both moved to check the readings, falling easily into their working rhythm. The modified plants were beginning to form a network, sharing the therapeutic frequencies through their root systems. "We'll need to adjust the harmonic matrix," Tavish observed. The collective effect is stronger than anticipated. Rihanna nodded, already making calculations. If we can stabilize the network effect, we could create entire healing gardens. Spaces where the plants work together to maintain therapeutic frequencies. As they worked, a notification popped up on Rihanna's screen, a message from the Institute's board of directors. They wanted a progress report, with particular emphasis on potential military applications. Rihanna's chest tightened. They'll want to weaponize it, she said, pushing back from the console. They always do. Take something meant for healing and turn it into a tool for destruction. Just like the terraforming technology that attracted the raiders. Tavish's skin darkened with concern. This is different. The harmonics cannot be weaponized, they can only promote healing and balance. Any attempt to create harmful frequencies would disrupt the entire system. Try explaining that to bureaucrats who see everything in terms of strategic advantage, Rihanna replied bitterly. They'll want to classify the research, restrict access, control who can benefit from it. Then we must show them something more valuable than a weapon, Tavish said firmly. We must show them healing in action. The ambassador's skin began to pulse with determination. Are you willing to take that risk? Rihanna looked around the laboratory, at the thriving plants, at the delicate network of resonators, at the data showing undeniable positive results. She thought of other survivors like herself, carrying invisible scars, needing more than traditional therapy could provide. What did you have in mind? We open our research to a small test group, Tavish proposed. Volunteer survivors of trauma, under careful supervision. Let the results speak for themselves. It would mean exposing their work before it was fully refined. It would mean letting people, strangers, into her carefully controlled space. It would mean making herself vulnerable in ways she'd avoided for years. But looking at the peace lily, now emanating its own gentle healing frequencies, Rihanna understood something important. She hadn't just been studying resilience in her plants, she'd been learning it from them. Like them, she could adapt, grow, and perhaps help others do the same. We'll need to establish protocols, she said, turning back to her console. Safety measures, monitoring systems, proper documentation. Tavish's skin brightened with approval and something else, pride, perhaps? Together, then? Rihanna managed a small smile. Together. Resonant growth. The first day of trials dawned with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. 5 volunteers gathered in the Institute's newly converted therapy garden, a veteran with PTSD, 2 survivors of natural disasters, a former hostage, and a refugee from a war zone. Each carried their own invisible burdens, their own frequencies of pain. Rihanna watched through the observation window as Tavish guided them into the space. The modified plants responded immediately, their bioluminescent patterns shifting to match each person's emotional state. The air hummed with gentle harmonics, a symphony of healing frequencies that made even Rihanna's perpetual tension ease slightly. Their vital signs are already stabilizing, she noted, checking the biomonitoring displays. Heart rates, cortisol levels, neural activity, all trending toward calmer patterns. But not everyone shared their optimism about the project. Earlier that morning, she'd received another message from the Institute's board, this one more strongly worded. They questioned the wisdom of involving civilians in experimental therapy, especially therapy that incorporated alien technology. Some even suggested that the harmonious might have ulterior motives. Dr. Nash. The Institute's AI interrupted her thoughts. Director Patterson has arrived unannounced. He's requesting immediate access to the therapy garden. Rihanna's hands clenched. Patterson had been the most vocal opponent of her collaboration with Tavish, arguing that human healing should remain in human hands. His arrival now, during their first critical trial, couldn't be coincidence. Hold him in the reception area, she instructed. Tell him we're in the middle of a controlled session that cannot be interrupted. Through the window, she watched one of the volunteers, the veteran, approach a cluster of modified jasmine. The plant's glow intensified, matching his agitated state, then gradually shifted to calmer blues and greens. The man's rigid posture began to relax. "Remarkable," said a voice behind her. Rihanna spun to find Patterson standing in the doorway, security clearance card in hand. "But also dangerous, wouldn't you agree?" "The only danger here is from interrupting a therapeutic session," Rihanna replied, struggling to keep her voice level. "These people have entrusted us with their healing process." Patterson moved to the window, studying the scene with narrow eyes. "They've entrusted themselves to an unproven alien technology. How do we know what these harmonics are really doing to their minds? Every frequency is documented, every effect measured and verified," Rihanna countered. "The volunteers are under constant medical supervision, and all data is being independently reviewed by other researchers who've been swayed by your alien friend's promises of miraculous healing?" Patterson cut in. "We're dealing with human trauma, Dr. Nash. It requires human solutions." Before Rihanna could respond, a commotion from the therapy garden drew their attention. The refugee woman, who hadn't spoken since arriving, had begun to sing. Her voice, rough from disuse, carried a melody that the plants caught and amplified, creating a haunting harmony that filled the space. One by one, the other volunteers joined in, not with words, but with humming, with gentle movements, with tears and tentative smiles. The plants pulsed in rhythm with their voices, the therapeutic frequencies adapting and flowing between human and botanical networks in perfect synchronization. "That," Rihanna said softly, "is what healing looks like, Director. Not human, not alien, but life helping life find its way back to harmony." Patterson watched in silence as the impromptu chorus continued. The tension in his face gradually eased, whether from the distant effect of the harmonics or simply the undeniable evidence before him. "The board will need comprehensive data," he said finally. "Regular reports, independent verification, long-term monitoring of participants." "You'll have it all," Rihanna assured him. "But first, let them heal." As Patterson left, Tavish emerged from the garden, skin glowing with warm, satisfied colors. "You stood your ground," the ambassador observed. "Your own frequencies are stronger now." Rihanna realized it was true. Defending their work, protecting their volunteers, it had awakened something in her that had been dormant since the attack. Not just purpose, but passion. Not just survival, but growth. "We're going to need a bigger garden," she said, already planning expansions. "And more volunteers." Tavish's skin rippled with approval. "The seeds we've planted here will spread, Rihanna. One harmony at a time." Looking at their volunteers, still swaying in their shared moment of healing, Rihanna felt her own scars fade just a little more. She had spent so long hiding from connection, but now she understood, true healing couldn't happen in isolation. It required trust, courage, and sometimes, a little alien wisdom. Harmonies bloom. 1 year after the first trials, the International Botanical Research Institute had transformed beyond recognition. The original therapy garden had expanded into a sprawling complex of interconnected healing spaces, each tailored to different types of trauma and recovery needs. Where sterile laboratories once stood, vibrant gardens flourished, their modified plants pulsing with therapeutic harmonics. The morning sun filtered through crystalline resonators as Rihanna walked through the central garden, checking readings on her tablet. A group of children, survivors of a colony world evacuation, played beneath towering luminescent trees, their laughter harmonizing with the plant's gentle frequencies. In another section, a trauma support group sat in a circle, surrounded by peace lilies that helped regulate emotional responses during therapy sessions. "The latest results have exceeded even our optimistic projections," Rihanna told Tavish, who walked beside her, skin shimmering with pleased golden tones. "Recovery rates are 30% higher than traditional therapy alone, and the effects appear to be permanent." They paused by a new experimental section where Rihanna's latest hybrid species were taking root. These plants could adapt their therapeutic frequencies in real time, creating personalized healing environments for each visitor. The project had drawn attention from medical facilities across Earth and several allied worlds. "You've received another invitation to speak at the Interstellar Medical Conference," the Institute's AI announced. "And the Harmonious Council wishes to establish similar facilities on 3 more worlds." Rihanna smiled, remembering how she'd once feared such connections. Now, she embraced them. Each new facility meant more people healing, more bridges being built between species and cultures. A familiar face approached, James, one of their first volunteers. Once unable to sleep without medication, he now helped guide new arrivals through their initial sessions. "Dr. Nash, Ambassador," he greeted them. "We've got a special visitor today." They followed him to a private garden where a lone figure stood, a void raider. Rihanna's breath caught. The former warrior's chitinous armor was scarred and dull, its usual aggressive posture replaced by something almost apologetic. "They seek asylum," Tavish explained gently. "And healing." The raid wars left scars on all sides. Rihanna's first instinct was to refuse. The memories of the Mars attack surged forward, the fire, the screams, the 3 days alone in the dark. But as she watched, the garden's plants began to respond to the raiders' presence. Their frequencies shifted, creating a bridge between species that had only known conflict. "Your gardens," the raider spoke, its translator struggling with the emotion in its voice, "they sing of peace. I have forgotten such songs." In that moment, Rihanna understood something profound. The healing she'd helped create wasn't just for her, or for humans, or even for the peaceful species like the Harmonious. It was for anyone who carried the weight of trauma, regardless of their past actions. "Welcome," she said, stepping forward. "Let us show you how to listen." As they guided the raider through initial harmonization, Rihanna felt the last of her own barriers dissolving. Her scars would always be part of her story, but they no longer defined her future. She had found her true purpose, not just surviving trauma, but transforming it into something that could help others heal. The garden hummed with possibility as sunset approached. Humans, aliens, plants, and technology working in harmony to create something beautiful from the broken pieces of the past. Rihanna looked at Tavish, whose skin now rippled with deep blues of contentment. "Thank you," she said simply, "for helping me hear the music again." Tavish's response came in the form of a gentle harmony that the entire garden caught and amplified, a song of hope that reached toward the stars. In every note, in every flowering plant, in every healed heart, there was a promise: no one had to heal alone. The end.